Well, thank you, friends. Welcome to this recording. My name is Laura Leese, and I am a spiritual director. And today I am joined by my colleague, Martha Lubitz, who is based in upstate New York. Welcome, Martha. So first of all, as you are beginning your own spiritual direction practice and business, I would love for folks to know more about your own personal journey of your spirituality.
I grew up in upstate New York in a Reform Jewish household and had some very religious people as influences on my mother's side, although my mother was not herself particularly religious. About the age of 20, I really kind of came across Jesus of Nazareth. And I remember feeling like prayer was just immensely powerful in his name. And I went to a Christian friend of mine. I said, why is prayer really powerful in Jesus' name? And she looked at me and she said, do you know what you're asking? And I think I understood that to mean, if you pursue this path, life as you have known it will never be the same. And that proved to be wildly true. I was living in Philadelphia at the time. I ended up being baptized in a local Methodist church because that was accessible. It was there on the corner. I spent some time in what I call middle high Protestant traditions, Presbyterian, Methodist, that level. I was in my early 20s. I found myself on the West Coast, with some friends who had said, oh, you got to come. It's great. I went to an undergrad in Northern California. There happened to be a Catholic campus ministry center on site. I was in the music department at the time, and a friend of mine said, gee, why don't you come and sing in our choir? And that is how I found myself in a Catholic environment. 5 years later, I had a spiritual director, had been going on retreats, and by the time I thought I might want to scope out middle high Protestant traditions again for the possibility of ordination, it was kind of too late because my insides were just so intensely linked into that Catholic contemplative spirituality. I would say that is the dominant influence. That's the dominant practice in my life. A couple of years ago, I began to do additional work to solidify my training in spiritual direction, and went through a program with the Diocese of Albany here in New York. And they began to talk about the idea of Jungian shadow. And I thought, oh, I know exactly where God's going with this. And it was very clear to me that within me, Judaism and Christianity were kind of like shadow to each other. But in order to kind of survive this immense transition from Judaism to Christianity, I kind of put a lot of the Jewish part stuff, in the little compartment here. And I really felt God calling me to really reconnect with all of that. And that is where I am today. So I would say I'm becoming much more inter-religious, inter-spiritual. Those are kind of words that make sense to me.
Mhm.
I remember someone saying to me, she was, Jewish, and she said, well, do you feel like you'll ever make a choice sometime?
Uh,
And now it's taken me a long time to really recognize that there's no them and us.
mm,
One day, and it was really like a revelation. I said, there aren't two gods.
mm,
There aren't two sections in heaven,
mm,
and there aren't two messiahs. And so these days, I am taking an enormous amount of my spiritual influence and input
mm,
from Judaism, and
mhm,
making great efforts to reconnect with Jewish roots,
mhm,
um, and so practicing that a lot more now.
mhm,
I've begun to really bring that back into my life in a living way.
mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, taking a whole lifetime of experience, Martha, and putting it into a couple minutes, I appreciate how challenging that is, and that you were able to do that for us today, at least to give us a little taste about your journey. And so you had experience as spiritual director, you yourself studied the field of spiritual direction, graduated with your certificate, and now feeling led to work as a spiritual director. Do you have a sense, Martha, of who the Lord might be inviting to work with you?
I relate very easily to people, and they relate to me easily, who are certainly in the normative Catholic and Episcopal, grouping.
Okay.
I'm fairly traditional. I would say I'm a pretty fairly orthodox Christian. So I'm not in a post this or cosmological that, or um,
Okay.
that probably is not, those are not the people that are going to come to me, but people who can handle it if we say in the name of the Father, the Son, or whatever, or at least in the Spirit, Creator, and Christ, who are not offended by that kind of imagery or language.
Okay.
I would say Jewish people who are open to a range
Mm,
of belief,
mm,
and yes, would be open to a range of belief, either are interested in Christianity themselves,
mm,
or are simply pursuing depth of relationship with God, spirituality.
mhm,
Uh, I read a great deal of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Schneerson, who was, as I understand it, from my categories, a mystic, although even from his categories, they talked about that.
mm,
And yes, I take an enormous amount of my own spirituality, and my spiritual life is very much connected with him and sitting in deep contemplation with
mm,
the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he was a mystic, and he was very universal in his understanding.
mm.
Um, and if I could, there's a quote that that he wrote, that I'd like to say.
Sure.
Let's see. Yes, okay, here we are. You already belong. You are already holy. You are already loved. Now you too must love, and by loving, help others to feel that they also belong.
Thank you. Beautiful. Hmm. Hmm. That sounds like a vision and a mission, actually. Mhm. We will have a link in this article to that quote. It's beautiful. Martha, is there anything else you want folks to know today?
No, just that I'm really looking forward to connecting with people. I believe that I have tremendous gifts and skills to offer, that I bring to the practice of spiritual direction. And looking forward to the many journeys in which I can participate.
So lovely. Martha, thank you again for your willingness to sit in on this little interview. And again, folks, we encourage you to look at the link below, brings you to the article that has contact information for Martha. Although she is based in upstate New York, she works with folks locally as well as really globally through the wonderful service of Zoom. So we're so grateful. So thank you again for your time today. Bless you.
Thank you, Laura.